That's a good sign. Set. Good evening. All the selectmen are present. And we'll start by transmitting Treasury warrants 39, 39A, 40, and 40A.
Motion so moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor? It's unanimous. No minutes to approve. We'll go right to our 7 o'clock appointment with Joe Martiniello and Ashley LeBur and Pat Giroux from the, Joe Martiniello is the event chair for the Wilmington Relay for Life. And here to talk about our 4th annual American Cancer Society Wilmington Relay for Life. Wow, 4th annual already.
Well,
good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us again. We appreciate coming. It's a great opportunity for us to just share the event with everyone who's listening on TV and with you again. Each year you've been so supportive of the event, and we appreciate that. Today, as you mentioned, I brought Ashley and Pat. Pat's my co-chair this year, and Ashley's from the American Cancer Society. So I didn't come alone. It's great. I brought friends. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Ashley. She'll give you a quick update on where our numbers are and some information about some of the resources that the funding goes to that we raise in Wilmington.
Hi, thank you so much for having us here tonight. The Relay for Life, for those of you who are not aware, is the American Cancer Society's signature activity, and it's an overnight walk where people walk in teams around a track and they raise money for cancer research, education, advocacy, and patient services. And we're trying to raise a lot of awareness about where the money actually goes. And so one of the services that a lot of people at our recent team captain meeting didn't know about yet was patient navigators. And so this is one of the things that the Relay for Life funds. Patient navigators are specialists that are located in various major hospitals throughout the country. We have some here in Boston at Beth Israel, Mass General, and UMass Memorial Medical Center. And what they help to do is they help to walk cancer patients through the complicated healthcare system. So the whole process of getting insurance claims filled out and making sure that they can actually get the treatments that they need. So that's one of the services that Relay for Life funds, but we also fund a lot of cancer research and education awareness activities throughout the country. This year's Relay for Life of Wilmington, our goal is to raise $172,000 in the fight against cancer. And actually, we recently reached a terrific milestone where over the last 3.5 years, we have raised over $500,000 in the fight against cancer right here in Wilmington. So that is a terrific milestone that we just reached just in the past week. So I want to thank everyone in Wilmington for being a part of that over the last 3.5 years. So far, we have 33 teams registered online, and we have 179 participants. We expect, though, those numbers will continue to rise. They're rising every day. So we'll definitely have at least 200, if not 300, registered participants by Relay in June. So thank you so much. And now, Pat.
Hi everyone, good evening. Right now I'm just going to discuss a couple ways our teams have been fundraising. A couple of our teams have already started fundraising, and we've started raising a lot of money. Some examples of fundraisers that some of our teams have been doing include one of our youth teams called the Painted Turtles have been selling duct tape pens, which have been a big hit, especially with kids. The Fight Back Commanders had a great dinner and a dance with the Appian Club in Stoneham. It was a great turnout. They had a nice pasta dinner the other night. And Kathy's Cancer Crushers and the Soul Sisters teamed up and had a fundraising night with an R-rated hypnotist with over 200 attendees. It was a great turnout for them, and I know everybody had fun by all. Another example is the Sons of Italy had their Easter breakfast. All their proceeds from the Easter breakfast went straight to the Relay for Life of Wilmington. And then finally, both the Westies Walkers and the Warriors Mom have been fundraising. They have fundraisers planned in April and May, which include the Warrior Mom Ambush. Basically, they go around to houses and they ambush people's houses with a bunch of tacky yard decorations is a good term to put it. And you basically have to pay to get it removed, or you could refer it to a different person to do that. And that has certainly raised a lot of money. And so far, we are still pretty early in the relay season. However, we have kicked off pretty greatly, and we've raised $15,000 so far on just those fundraisers I just listed. But now Joe's going to give you a quick update with the event overview.
So before I go to that, with that $15,000, we have the $15,000 that we've already, well, $12,000 that we've already raised online. So we're close to over $30,000. So we're tracking ahead of last year in both participants and fundraising. We will well exceed over 300. We'll have close to six to 800 participants at the event. Last year we had, if you include the people who just attended for the day of, and that's the important thing to know about Relay. It's open to the whole community. It's a community event. We had close to 1,200 people at the event last year at the peak time, which is great. So we're expecting we'll see somewhere around 1,500 this year. And the big news with this year's Relay is it's at the Shawshene Valley Technical High School. They have been extremely accommodating. We're going to have a comparable event that we had in years past. We're very excited to be working with them. They're excited to be hosting it for us on behalf of the town of Wilmington. And this is still a Wilmington event. Billerica has their own Relay. They host it somewhere else at another location in town. So we're very excited about Relay again this year. Coming back again, we'll have the Relay Fun Zone. So we've had that in years past where kids can go to, we have a bouncy house, we had a dunk tank and an inflatable obstacle course for kids to compete in, temporary tattoos, face painting. It's a real fun event for the town and for families throughout the town for the day. It allows people to bring their families together and talk about a very difficult topic in a positive light. And we'll have our standard ceremonies if you haven't attended Relay in the past. So the survivor ceremony at the beginning and the welcome ceremony. We'll then go in the evening, we'll have a luminaria ceremony, a more poignant point in the event itself where you get to take a moment and remember about some of those that have passed on from this disease and celebrate their life. And then at the end of the event, we have a fight back ceremony where you make a commitment to what you're going to do in your personal life to try to prevent yourself from getting cancer. So maybe it's using that sunscreen that you might have forgot to put on when you're going out into the sun. Maybe it's quitting smoking if you're a smoker. So those are the 3 standard ceremonies we have. And throughout the event itself, survivors, I'm sorry, we had Rocco's participate with the survivor dinner. We have Bertucci's with the Pizza Blitz at midnight. They come in to help out. Starbucks is coming in this year with coffee from, they told me for the entire event they're going to have coffee for us. So we'll be able to keep everybody awake with coffee for the event itself. And a lot of the businesses come in and they help out and support this event. So it's been a great event for the town of Wilmington, and it's been a great thing to help out the American Cancer Society. And as Ashley alluded to earlier, some of those resources that are just so beneficial that we can take advantage of right here in Wilmington. Residents of Wilmington can take advantage of those resources. So it's not just giving back to others, which we do on a grander scale. There are some resources that don't apply to us, like the Hope Lodge, which is in Boston. So if you're over, is it 65 miles or 50 miles away 50 miles away from the city, and you don't have a means to stay in the city, it's a location that the American Cancer Society funds that you can go and your families can stay there. They have the rides, they do the road to recovery, so patients that have continuous treatments, if they can't get family members to help them get to those treatments, that's another resource that the American Cancer Society offers. So it's been great working and teaming with the ACS and the town. You have been phenomenal over the past 4 years, and we're excited again this year for Relay. And thank you for your time today.
Outstanding. Like I said, when you started 4 years, wow, how the time flies, and such a topic that has touched so many lives and so many families' lives, and your enthusiasm just shows through for this event. And we appreciate all the hard work that you've put in through the last 4+ years now, and hope that I'm sure it will be another successful event. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just say quickly, just after you, Mr. Chairman, thank you once again. Thank you. I mean, every year you step up to the plate, and as the chairman stated, the past 4 years have really flew by, and I'm sure cancer has touched everybody at one point or another in their family. And once again, volunteerism at its best. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's all been said. Just quickly acknowledge the nice job you've done outlining what folks should expect and the successes of the past, and to reiterate what's been said. It's a great job for a wonderful cause. Thank you.
I'd also like to express my deepest gratitude to each of you. Every year it continues to evolve, and you think it isn't possible to have any more pride to be from Wilmington and be at an event such as this, and every year it just continues to exceed expectations. So you're certainly getting the youth involved and everyone on up, so it's just really impressive, and I just want to say thank you, and thank you very much for giving us a nice little takeaway. So I'll certainly add that to my key ring, so thank you.
Yeah, I'll express again, thank you, but also congratulations, Joe, all of you, for what you do. But ultimately, Joe, this was your brain trust, I think, 5 years ago when you first conceived of bringing that to us. I'm so incredibly impressed that, sometimes these events, they come out, the first one is a big bang, and you think, how are we ever going to live beyond that? How are we going to, improve on ourselves? And you have, and it continues. The energy is still there. Your own, as well as the energy of all the participants. So congratulations to you, but also congratulations and thanks to all the participants, all the businesses in town, and all the individuals who stay up overnight and participate and do this, and really show the character of Wilmington. So I thank you all for showing us in a most positive light, and I hope we're here every year doing this, so keep it up.
Thank you. Anything before you go, maybe, maybe you want to mention the website again?
Oh, yeah, wilmingtonrfl.com. So wilmingtonrfl.com. We have our own domain to make it easy for you to find us online. So we look forward to your participation and hope you can attend the event on June 15th. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming. Good evening. Nice to see the youth in there. Okay, our 7:15 appointment is with me, the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and presentation of the Board of Selectmen's annual report for calendar year 2011. Good evening, dear fellow residents. The Board of Selectmen continues to be actively involved in dealing with critical issues affecting the well-being of the town residents. Together with a strong professional management team, the board's mission is to ensure the delivery of a wide range of municipal services that are responsive to the needs of those who live and work in our community. Calendar year 2011 brought with it a host of challenges to municipalities across the state, not the least of which centered on finding ways to stabilize the local economy and to keep government affordable. Selectmen continue to espouse the principles of conservative budgeting, and that has enabled the townspeople to benefit in a variety of ways. There have been no Proposition 2.5 operating overrides, no imposition of burdensome fees, and no cutbacks in service. Selectmen are unanimous in their commitment to continue on the path of fiscal responsibility. Residents continue to demonstrate their support for a new high school by their overwhelming support both at the polls and at the December special town meeting. That's where we authorized the construction of an $81.5 million 21st century learning facility. Selectmen were united in their support of this project. Given the town's current strong financial condition, the availability of funds from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the favorable construction bidding climate, and the obvious need for a new high school facility, town officials and residents alike galvanized behind the project. The board commends those town officials and residents who continue to facilitate the advancement of this important initiative, and we especially acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the high school building committee. The board was involved with a number of important projects and initiatives in calendar year 2011. Selectmen are responsible for ensuring fair and appropriate employment agreements that are mindful of economic conditions. During the past year, we successfully negotiated contracts with the unions representing public buildings personnel, firefighters, patrolmen, and police supervisors. The contracts are fair and do not impose an undue burden on the taxpayer, either in the short or long term. The board was also successful in negotiating a fair price for the purchase of land adjacent to the high school that was owned by the Baptist Church. Special town meeting attendees endorsed the acquisition of the parcel, which enabled the expansion of the footprint for the new high school. At year's end, selectmen were finalizing plans to purchase the former Yentau Farm property on Cross Street. The town has had a long interest in acquiring the 20-acre parcel for new fields and open space expansion. In the early 2000s, the asking price was prohibitive, however. With the assistance of the town manager, we are prepared to enter into a purchase and sale agreement that requires the town to pay less than $1.2 million for the property. This price is approximately $2.6 million less than the price paid in 2003. We are hopeful that at the 2012 town meeting, attendees will support this important proposal. Pursuant to town meeting vote, selectmen authorized the sale of surplus town property on Faneuil Drive, the proceeds of which will be deposited in the town's capital stabilization fund. The Board of Selectmen spent several meetings working with the Board of Registrars, the town clerk, and the Director of Engineering Services to update the town's precinct maps. The Commonwealth approved the plan endorsed by selectmen to revise the composition of the precincts in order to establish an equitable distribution of voters for each precinct. The end result is that certain voters will be required to vote in a different precinct and in some cases be required to change their polling location. Selectmen remain committed to protecting the town's natural resources. In October, Selectman Newhouse testified on behalf of the town in support of legislation to exempt the town of Wilmington from liability for actions taken by private parties at the site of the Maple Meadow landfill. The town continues to monitor the site while reiterating its position that the site be properly closed without the delivery of additional soil. The town continues to work in conjunction with the New England region of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to find appropriate solutions for the remediation and cleanup of the Olin Superfund site. The town filed a strenuous objection to the New England Transrail's most recent filing in August with the U.S. Surface Transportation Board, thereby renewing its opposition to a solid waste processing transportation facility at the Olin site. The town is pleased to report on the success of its aeration milfoil treatment program that has been implemented at Silver Lake under the auspices of the Department of Public Works. In fact, due to the success of earlier treatments, there was no need to apply milfoil control herbicides to Silver Lake during 2011. The town's end-of-the-year lake surveys indicate success in controlling this invasive species, as there is a lack of visible milfoil in the lake. Selectmen endorsed a new roadway treatment program that reduces the town's reliance on salt to treat roadways during storm events. The town is urging the State Transportation Department to follow suit by establishing no or reduced salt zones on Interstate 93. Despite the slow pace of the project, the board continues to work with federal and state officials, private stakeholders, and its counterparts in Tewksbury and Andover to facilitate the Route I-93 transportation and economic development project. In April, selectmen signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with the towns of Billerica and Tewksbury to share the design and permitting costs associated with the reconstruction of the Whipple Road Bridge. Funding will come from the town's Chapter 90 construction account. The execution of the MOU does not commit town funds to project's construction phase. Town meeting voted to accept that section of the state law which enabled the town to impose a local meals tax. The action of the town is compatible with most of our neighboring communities, and in just a few months has proven to be a valuable and reliable source of new revenue. Town meeting also authorized the town to seek approval for the enactment of special legislation which would amend the town charter by eliminating the residency requirement for the position of town manager. Governor Patrick signed the act into law on August 26, 2011, thereby providing the town with greater latitude when selecting a town manager. For the second year in a row, the town of Wilmington was a recipient of the Bring Back the Fourth grant and the Fire Safety grant 2 national contests sponsored by Liberty Mutual. Residents rallied to put Wilmington on top, guaranteeing the receipt of 2 more $10,000 grants in 2011. The town is the only community in the country to win all 4 contests. The effort put forth by residents on this project typifies the Wilmington community. Programs such as the Library's Community Fair, the Relay for Life, the Chamber of Commerce, the Women of Wilmington Charitable Road Races, and the newly established Farmers Market are all examples of the town's partnership with the support of meaningful community events. Perhaps the most meaningful this past year, however, was the town's inspirational commemoration of the 10th anniversary of September 11th. This singular event captured the essence of our town and will long be remembered as a poignant and meaningful moment in Wilmington's history. This past year, we sadly laid to rest an exemplary employee who worked as a police officer. Officer Sean Lee brought great pride to the uniform, and he will be sorely missed. Sean's work was typical of so many outstanding employees who the board readily acknowledges and extends its appreciation to for their hard work. We thank all of our colleagues on the various boards and committees who volunteer their time on behalf of the community. We especially thank the residents who make Wilmington a special place in which to live. Finally, we acknowledge the work of the town manager, Michael Kyra, Assistant Town Manager Jeffrey Hull, Administrative Assistant Secretary to the Board of Selectmen Beverly Dalton, and the manager's entire administrative team for their diligence and professionalism. Next year, Selectmen will undertake the replacement of the Wilmington's longest-serving town manager, Michael Kyra. We are indebted to him for his years of tireless and exemplary service, and the residents may be assured that the board will choose his successor focused, as always, on what is best for the town. It's respectfully submitted by Louis Semaglia IV, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Very good.
Correspondence.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, a letter from Jeffrey Hull to Michael Newhouse, who is, as you know, handling in the, as a result of the recusal of Chairman Semaglia, the issues relative to the new town manager position. So there is a letter that Mr. Hull sent to Mr. Newhouse that responds to Mr. Newhouse's inquiry, which was made on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, relative to his interest in the position upon the retirement of the current town manager. Mr. Hull indicated, first, let me express my heartfelt thanks for being considered for the position of town manager. In my opinion, the decision about who will serve as Wilmington's next town manager is one of the most crucial decisions that any Board of Selectmen will ever make. Mike Kyra's high standards of public service and his commitment to the community of Wilmington have set the bar very high for whoever is appointed to serve as the next town manager. It has been an honor and a privilege to work for the town of Wilmington for the past 24+ years, and I'm very much interested in the potential opportunity to serve as the next town manager. I'm available to meet with the board at its convenience to discuss the position and answer any questions. And he asked Mr. Newhouse to extend his thanks to the board members for considering him for the position of town manager.
And unless the board has any objection or comment, my intention was to invite Mr. Hull in to a public session and a meeting of the board sometime after the annual election. To me, makes sense. So that either the 14th or the meeting thereafter. I would think most likely the 14th, as long as everybody can be in attendance.
You also have a memorandum that has already been widely distributed to the press and others from Joanne Benton, the superintendent of schools, and myself, relative to the permitting of the Wilmington High School project. As you know, back in June, the wetland resource areas and riverfront boundaries were submitted to the Conservation Commission through the filing of an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. and the Commission's subsequent issuance of an order of resource area delineation to define the wetland resource areas and riverfront. After informal discussions at that time with the conservation agent and director of planning, the high school project submitted an initial notice of intent for the replacement of the stadium grass with synthetic turf in advance and separately of the notice of intent for the whole site. The separate field submission was to accommodate the overall project's phasing, which was established based on starting initial work on the stadium in the spring of 2012 and installing the synthetic turf after the 4th of July to finish before the start of high school football practices on August 20th. The completion of the synthetic turf before school resumes in the fall of 2012 would support physical education classes and support more intensive athletics usage when the high school gym and the existing softball field are demolished to clear the area for the new building's foundation, work which is intended for the summer of 2012. After 2 public hearings in collaboration with the Conservation Commission and its agent, the stadium NOI received unanimous approval by the Commission. However, 10 local residents of the town and one abutter appealed the decision to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection pursuant to the state CMRs. When the DEP reviewed the appeal, they found that they could not fully evaluate the stadium notice of intent without information that would be included in the full site notice of intent, such as details of the mitigation outside the stadium. In order to allow for a more holistic review of the project and potential impacts in the wetland resource areas and riverfront area, the town decided to withdraw the stadium NOI without prejudice and include that information in a comprehensive notice of intent for the whole site. Because of the appeal of the stadium project, the project itself will not be completed before August 20th as originally planned. It is the town's hope that by continuing to work with the Conservation Commission, concerned citizens, and the DEP, that the full project can be evaluated in an expeditious manner, which will keep the high school project on schedule for opening in September of 2014. We will be going to the Conservation Commission at their meeting on April 25th with a full site notice of intent, with the hope that we can move forward and be able to stay on track for the major project of the facility itself. It is not clear at this point as to when we would begin the stadium project. That really would depend upon what comes out of the full NOI, which will include the plans for the stadium itself and all of the restoration proposals. So it is pretty clear at this point that we won't meet the initial timetable with regard to the field, and therefore the field would just be delayed and would be incorporated later into the project and or into the project schedule. And hopefully, if not completed in the fall, at some point in the fall, but certainly not by August 20th, then we would wait and complete it for the following year's athletic activities. The board has a letter from Governor Patrick and Lieutenant Governor Timothy Murray that was addressed to the chairman regarding Chapter 90 local transportation aid funding. They are informing the board that local aid funding for the Chapter 90 account for fiscal year 2013 will total $200 million statewide. He writes, as you are aware, the fiscal year 2012 funding represented a 29% increase from the previous fiscal year, which represented the highest level of funding ever apportioned for local transportation aid. The letter itself certifies that the town's Chapter 90 apportionment for fiscal year 2013 is provisionally set at $765,247 based on the passage of the appropriate bond bill. Once the bond bill authorizing the Chapter 90 program is passed into law, then the apportionment would be incorporated in our existing contracts for the Chapter 90 program. This is pretty much the amount that we had anticipated, Mr. Chairman. We, at budget time, had been given preliminary figures from the state of $772,000. This is $765,000. It's about a $7,000 difference. It's preliminary, but in fact, it's a good number for the town. I know that the MMA has been looking to increase it by another third to $300 million, or really by 50% to $300 million, but that is not likely to happen. The town received a legislative alert from the Massachusetts Municipal Association regarding Senate Bill 2200, which is an act relative to competitively priced electricity in the Commonwealth. And this particular legislation is before the Senate and was expected to go before the Senate on April 5th. So we moved quickly on the board's behalf with regard to this to ask that certain impacts that this well-meaning legislation has be looked at in terms of its effect on taxes for a local municipality. It would exempt certain renewable energy property that is now taxable at the local level and reduce the amount of money that the local municipality could expect to receive. We wrote to Senator Tarr. I asked Skip Moynihan to do that, and he did. He wrote on behalf of the town of Wilmington to point out those issues. As it turns out, Senator Tarr's office, who he was in contact with, indicated that he's received all kinds of expressions of concern from municipalities that certain aspects of this legislation would present a problem for many cities and towns. And so we're just asking them to slow down a little bit with regard to those issues. We have situations where a solar solar power generating facility would be taxed at an amount far less than that they're being taxed at now. We have no problem, certainly, with any company who is generating electricity or energy by means of solar for their own purposes. We believe that is something that should, in fact, be exempt. If you use a system to power your own facility, you get a 20-year exemption on taxes, and we have agreement with that. But we're talking about a for-profit company that would come into a community and be taxed at a much less rate than other businesses and residents. And so that's the concern that we're expressing on behalf of the board. This is still sort of in its infancy, and we'll keep the board informed as things go forward. You have a memorandum from me relative to the recommendations that I'm required to make relative to the sale of town-owned land at the annual town meeting. I have reviewed the parcels of town-owned land and have provided the specifics as required to the town clerk in terms of the determinations that I made, all of which were based in consultation with the Property Review Board, which undertook a review of the parcels that were referenced by petitioners. There were two parcels in this case. One is referenced as Article 24. It's map 80, lot 42B. That is a small piece of property on Lawrence Street. The Property Review Board voted to recommend that the parcel be declared surplus to the needs of the town, but did so with the condition that the property not be offered for sale until all of the issues of encroachment and other defects that have been mentioned about this property have been corrected. And so I have made a declaration of surplus with that caveat that I would make that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and I have so advised the petitioner. The value that has been established for this property by the Board of Assessors is $12,420. The other request was Article 25, map 6, lots 146, 146A, 149, and 150 on Mary and Stanley Streets off of Burlington Avenue. The Property Review Board voted unanimously to recommend that the parcels not be deemed surplus to the needs of the town, and I accepted their recommendation, and have made the determination that this property at this time is not surplus. The board has a copy of a letter that I sent on their behalf to Gary DePalmer. Mr. DePalmer is the chairperson of the Wilmington Town Democratic Committee, and in compliance with the Mass General Law, I wrote to him on behalf of the Board of Selectmen relative to the appointment of a member to the Board of Registrars. The letter was official notification from the board that the term of Alice Hooper, who is a member of the Board of Registrars representing the Democratic Party, will expire on April 30th. I advised him that Ms. Hooper has indicated that she is interested in reappointment, and in accordance with the law, every such appointment shall be made in a town by the selectmen or the appointing authority from a list to be submitted to them by the town committee. The town committee has typically contacted us and made a recommendation or have indicated that they have no objection to a reappointment. Ultimately, it's the board's appointment to make. They have 45 days in which to do that, so we sent this out so that we will meet the appropriate timelines when the board makes their appointments. The board received a letter from Mario Marchese regarding the various issues of concern. Mr. Marchese wrote regarding issues relative to the traffic flow at the Wilmington Middle School, and is asking that the town look at the morning drop-off period with the hopes of improving the way parents and others are dropping off their children in the morning. That's a situation that we have been looking at. The chief and the members of his staff and myself and the school department will continue to visit this issue and to come up with a solution. One of the solutions that had been suggested was to make the Carter Lane one-way. Naturally, if that becomes a recommendation, that would have to come before the Board of Selectmen. I also had a question relative to the purchase and sale agreement of the Enthouse Farm property, expressing his concern to make sure that the property is suitable for purchase, both from a usable standpoint as well as an environmental standpoint, and I can certainly assure him on behalf of the board, and I'd be happy to write a letter of response to the board, that is something that we are obviously looking at. That was included in the town's purchase and sale agreement. We've actually engaged our own environmental firm to look at that property, and all the reports that we have back to date are very positive that it certainly is something that could be utilized for the purposes that we're talking about.
If I may, I'm sorry, Mike, are you done on this?
Yes.
I think it's important to note, and you already said it very well, but I just want to reiterate it. The Board of Selectmen and town administration walked into the Entile property with eyes wide open. The town has been familiar with the nuances of that property for decades. And so, prudence was to make sure that in any agreement that was crafted in the purchase and sale, that we were afforded the opportunity to evaluate the property and make sure that we weren't walking into a bee's nest, so to speak. So this letter is welcome. I welcome any letter, any communication from any resident. But it wasn't so much what was said in this letter as much as how some of the assertions were made. And I guess I just wanted to articulate my own observation that I feel like perhaps some of these things were a little bit exaggerated in the letter. And I just want to make it very, very clear to Mr. Marchese, if he's listening, he's not here this evening, and to anyone else who perhaps might come into possession of his letter, that the Board of Selectmen in the town understands and recognizes the importance of dotting our I's and crossing our T's, and we're not walking into the Entile property or suggesting that the town should vote in favor of buying this property with any lack of awareness of what that property represents. Additionally, the traffic situation at the middle school. I'm a parent of a middle schooler, and I've experienced exactly what I believe Mr. Marchese is referring to. And well, from my own personal experience, it is like virtually most of the other schools. There's a high concentration of parents and buses and activity and kids making their way to and from the school at various hours of the day. I suspect maybe there are ways to improve upon that. What I don't, I guess, adhere to is the notion that in some way, shape, or form, the implication is made here that someone maybe dropped the ball or that some action was neglected. And I believe that, to my heart of hearts, that not to be the case. And I just want to make sure that the town of Wilmington recognizes and understands that this issue has been made aware to the public safety professionals at the highest level in town, to Mr. Kara and others, and it has been continuously evaluated as to whether or not there is in fact a bona fide problem that warrants a solution being put in place. And I just found it interesting, and I'll just say this, that Mr. Marchese is a sitting member of the school committee, and Mr. Marchese asked for the support of the Board of Selectmen to get something done in this regard, and I guess I found it kind of ironic that he didn't first go through the process through the school committee, working with Superintendent Benton and the other authorities to enact whatever change he was hoping to enact, but instead came to us directly. I also find it ironic, the timing of the letter as well. So those are my observations on that, and I just wanted to share that with you, my colleagues, and you, the town. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Okay, no, we're not a public comment yet.
Actually, not.
Mr. McDonald, we're not a public comment yet.
I'm looking for a question, sir.
Okay, you want to continue?
We have correspondence from Mary Freer of Verizon regarding the cost increase that is being passed on to customers relative to Verizon Fios's TV set-top box equipment. There will be a rate change, they indicate, due to rising cost, and all the subscribers to Verizon cable will receive, or they may have already received that notification. It becomes effective on May 6th. The board is being asked to consider the request of Patricia Romano of the Wilmington Band Parents and Friends to use the town common on Monday, June 4th from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. The band parents would like to hold a barbecue for the band members as part of the end-of-the-year event. They would be hiring caterers to provide the meal, and they would be asking to use the common for setup beginning at 3 o'clock, from 5 to 6:30 for the meal, and then until 8 for the cleanup. The group consists of high school band members, teachers, and parents, and then they will be showing a slideshow in the high school's auditorium. My only comment to this is certainly a wonderful group, and the board has been very supportive. They have not been allowing these kinds of events on the town common. I don't know that it would make a whole lot of difference to them if we shifted it over to, or suggested it be shifted over to the green that's available on the other side at the former site of the Swain School, which might make it easier for all.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as well. I don't remember us doing actually food other than the 4th of July week
4th of July.
On the common.
Well, cooking, yeah.
Are there any other conflicts, dates for that as well?
No, there are no conflicts that I'm aware of, and I have had the conversation with the superintendent.
And, okay, any questions or comments or a motion from the board?
I move that we grant the request subject to this specific location as described by the manager.
Second?
Okay, motion made and seconded, all in favor? It's unanimous?
Okay. No? And that concludes the regular business before the board, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Public comments? Mr. McDonald, I'm just going to warn you again this evening that we're not going to make a show of this meeting, this public meeting.
I really don't need a lecture, sir.
And allow you to speak, knowing that the name calling and the innuendos are not going to fly tonight.
Yes, not interested in that, sir. But I would like to ask a few questions I have a few comments, but before I do that, when you're the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and there are various items such as agenda items like we've seen tonight and communications, when we're on a particular subject, people in the audience take...
I'm not here to be lectured from you tonight either, Mr. McDonald. So if you have a question to this board,
Yeah, I have a
let it
comment.
rip.
These are public comments, sir. And so I believe that the meetings could be improved with some different style of leadership, such as recognizing the people that come to these meetings.
I just recognize you, didn't I, Mr. McDonald?
Taking the time. I would appreciate it if you wouldn't interrupt me.
No, I'm just saying, I just recognize you. I'm making a comment on your comment. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah,
McDonald.
you could wait till the...
Don't tell me what to do, Mr. McDonald, please.
So
Not in the mood tonight.
basically, the people here take time out of their busy schedules to come here and take an interest in their town. And we've seen people exit the meeting before we could ask questions or comments. And that's basically because of your failure to recognize the audience.
Sure, absolutely, Mr. House.
First of all, it's the chairman's job to run the meeting, and I would say that he does a good job running the meeting. Specifically with regard to your comment, what I've observed for the better part of the last year is that people who do have something scheduled on the agenda are tortured by comments and questions that are off topic, who end up sitting through a meeting waiting an inordinate amount of time for their business to be taken up. So it's certainly it's an accurate observation that Mr. Semaglia hasn't recognized people during the communications section of the meeting. But that's really been traditional for as far back as I can remember, and given circumstances at these meetings last year, seems particularly prudent to do that.
I have to disagree. With regard to the band parents, some of us recognize that the Common has a gazebo. Some people might refer to it as a bandstand. These particular people are taxpayers in town, and if their event involves a band, then to take these parents who are taxpayers in town and shove them across the street away from that bandstand.
Mr. McDonald, I disagree with you. We're shoving them across the street.
Well,
It doesn't involve a band, by
And
the
it
way.
doesn't involve a band.
Well, we'd like some clarity on that, but
Anything else you got there tonight,
I'm
Mr.
sure
McDonald?
that they recognize that they could have requested the property across the street, but they in fact requested the comment. With regard to the letter of Mr. Marchese, I don't really appreciate selectmen marginalizing or minimizing a resident that actually takes an interest in writing a letter to the board about concerns about his community that he pays taxes to. I, for one, am leaning
You
to...
marginalize this board every single meeting for the past year plus.
Well, I'm hoping to improve that at the election. So, with regard to Mr. Marchese's letter, some of us have seen trucks coming into that site when the big dig was going on. You have children at that school? I'm not sure if you're writing a book about me, but I'm not even talking about the school. I'm talking about the Yankow property. Some of us were in town when the big dig was going on, and we're aware that there's been contaminated material that's been taken out of the big dig. So I think Mr. Marchese's concern was, before we spend $1 million plus to make sure that there's a 21E and an environmental study done so that we're not buying a disaster, buying something...
Your opinion, Mr. McDonald, your opinion.
No, I don't think it's an opinion. I think it's a responsible viewpoint and action so that the town doesn't absorb massive costs in hazardous cleanup if there was material brought in from the big dig.
There's been an environmental site assessment done on the property, and the town has also hired its own environmental person. So there's a belt and suspenders. There's a belt and suspenders look at this. As I indicated before, the town's only obligation with regard to the purchase and sale was to bring this forward to town meeting and put it on the warrant, which the town has done. As Mr. Shampoo indicated, there is no intention of investing in something that would not be a worthwhile investment from an environmental point of view. Everything we've looked at to date indicates that the facility is suitable for the purpose for which it would be intended. But we're going to continue to look at that. Appreciate certainly your concern. It's the same concern that I think any other responsible party has, including this Board of Selectmen who negotiated the contingent purchase and sale, with the caveat right within the body of that agreement that there would be a full review of the environmental issues, and the town would be able to take a position based upon what it determines.
Okay, so just for clarification, so the community knows, anybody in town could put in a public records request for the soil evaluations that were done, and since you said they were already done, are they ready to be picked up to look at who did the study and,
They're not.
you know when that will be ready?
I don't, but I would expect that I would have something from the environmental consultant who we're using, which is Geo Insight, prior to town meeting.
What's the name of that consultant firm?
Geo Insight.
And just one last thing, the local paper reported what I think is some misinformation. I believe it was the town crier stated that the redevelopment authority.
That's just not important.
The redevelopment
Exactly
authority.
what I was, no, that's
Town
exactly
crier
what,
recommended
that's
that.
exactly what I was trying to explain to you before you
Yeah,
started.
what I just wanted
So
to.
what I'm gonna tell you now,
The
Mr.
redevelopment
McDonald.
authority still has work to do.
You're done,
And it has
Mr.
the
McDonald.
ability to request funds from the state.
Mr. McDonald, I'm asking you, is there any other public comments?
I think the
Oh,
public
Mr.
will
McDonald, you're finished this
Yeah.
evening. You're finished.
Bring some more people like we did last week.
Mr. West.
Frank West, from Richmond Road. I just wanted to let the Board of Selectmen and the community know that Saturday morning, which is actually 2 a.m., the Wilmington Minutemen will do their annual march to Concord. And we do have permission to light fire the muskets from the town common up into the bridge. And we're going to have both the Minutemen and also Troop 136 with us as far as the march goes. And the other, I just had a comment also, in that I know we're in the process of looking at the entire land for purchase, and what I'm wondering is that there's another parcel of land, basically the land over St. Dorothy's, that I don't know if any of you guys are aware that has come to, where the searchers are in process of selling the land. They're looking for a buyer, so just think of that. It might be an avenue to look at, because right now you've got parking issues here, and it might be able to alleviate some issues over at the parking here between the different town activities that go on, plus the activities out in the field. And also, there's probably about 6.5 acres out there, so it might be a decent parcel to look at and talk to either St. Thomas Church, St. Dorothy's Church, or through the Archdiocese. Just
Just by way of reminder to the board in response to that inquiry, the board may recall an extended period of time has gone by, but the town manager is well aware of that piece of property, and should it become available, that it's worth exploration. So I know that I don't want to get into Mr. Kyra's personal situation here, as he just excused himself from the meeting, but I'm sure he can report back to us the results of any interest that there might be in that property.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Bond?
Well, I was wondering, I wish Mr. Kyra were here. I see we've got 4 brush drop-off dates and a number of curbside collections of waste. But I was also wondering, in lieu of the dry spell we've had, the fire department's not issuing burning permits for those of us who like to burn. I'm wondering if we can get an extension when the rainy season does start. Is that a possibility, or is the date etched in stone?
It's a state law, I think, Mike.
What's that?
It's a state law, I think, the date on the burning, it's a state law, I think.
There's a certain date?
It's local, it's not local, it's a state law.
guess it's answered by a member of the audience.
My gut reaction would be to check with the fire department.
Okay. Any other public comments?
Yeah, maybe the board could recognize
Any other
that
public
people pay a lot of money in taxes to keep that drop-off facility
Okay.
open, and then you're charging them money to go there.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments, sir?
Greg Wendell, Burlington Avenue. I just wanted to say thank you to the board. I think that there's a lot of us in town who appreciate all the work that you're doing, and the manager as well. And there's someone who's lived there for almost 30 years and is actually a homeowner in this town and also pays taxes. I feel bad that you have to sit up here week after week and put up with some of the things you do, but I want to let you know that your efforts don't go unnoticed by a lot of people in the community, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, new business committee reports, and we'll start down here with Mrs. O'Connell first this evening.
I actually don't have anything further to say this evening, so we'll make it brief.
Okay. Mr. Shampoo?
Oh, well, I have a few, no, just a few things. I wanted to express my appreciation and compliments to you for your report, Lou. It was well delivered, well written, and I appreciate the thought that you put into assembling your comments and delivering them tonight. Additionally, I wanted to recognize the Relay for Life again one more time. I hope folks in Wilmington will, if they take anything out of this meeting, they take Relay for Life, and we'll glom onto that and be a part of that this year. I just also want to make sure that folks recognize what Mr. Kyra delivered tonight with regards to the high school project, that there's lots of stuff in the press and the news, and sometimes it's hard to understand the nuances of what's going on. At the end of the day, the high school project continues. It is the hope, the intent, the desire of the high school building committee to keep this thing on track. If they have to manipulate some of the schedule in order to keep it on track with regards to the field or other things, that's all part of the process, but I just want residents to be confident, though the overwhelming amount of residents who are in favor of this project should feel confident that the town administration is working very aggressively to keep this on track as well. Let's see, lastly, lastly was just Happy Easter. It's the day after Easter, so Happy Easter. I hope everyone enjoyed their Easter weekend, and Happy Passover to those of you celebrating that holiday. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. McClure?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. That means a little something. I came in tonight not with a prepared statement, but I was writing down some notes, and I want to share this with the board prior to the public comment section, because I thought it would be meaningful. And if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
This board has given Mr. McDonald plenty of time to speak and has given him plenty of latitude relative to his time on many issues, and has shown him more respect than he has shown us. However, Kevin McDonald has brought abuse to the public comment section to a new low, as demonstrated by tonight and previous nights. Public comments is not a political soapbox. The main intent when I created public comments years ago when I was chairman was simply to help residents through the maze of local government, to give residents a quick answer or guide them in the right direction. Simple, quick, and easy. And I'm glad to see that it has continued when Mr. Lepore was chairman, Mr. Newhouse, and now you are, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McDonald has used this segment as his very own platform to throw rocks at the town manager, the police, the fire, the town employees, and you, Mr. Chairman, and all of us sitting here. I recommend that we visit this segment. I recommend that we, under public comments, limit the time no more than 3 to 5 minutes, time to speak relative to public comments, and if it goes beyond that, as you as chairman or whoever the chairman is in future meetings would use its own discretion relative to that time. And I open it for debate here, Mr. Chairman, because it's definitely being abused. We saw it here tonight, and it's, with all due respect to Mr. McDonald, I think we've shown you more respect than you've shown us, and I think we've demonstrated. And you keep on banging the drum, meeting after meeting. But it brings no pleasure to talk about it, but I think it needs to be addressed. And I don't think we've never, ever, and you, Mr. Chairman, has denied anybody an opportunity here to speak. It's never happened. And it's just out of control, and it's just not an open mic to do whatever you please. That's not the intent. And I think everybody in the audience that does speak on public comments, Mr. West spoke public comments, just brought a good point to us. It was only a minute. This individual came, other individuals come, and Mr. Lincolnfeld has made comment a couple of minutes, and it's been civil. But it's just out of control, and it's just, and I hear it time and time from people I see all the time. And I'm out in the public all the time. I see people every day. And people do see these meetings. They do read the local newspapers. And I think that's how we respond when we talk to people, you know? And, yeah, they do write letters to the editor, and obviously, case point.
Mr. McDonald, please, you were over there smiling, laughing, and making faces while Mr. McCoy was speaking, so
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief.
Use it as a political
your whole.
And believe me, I'm
We
not,
talked
and
about the
believe,
5 minutes a few meetings ago,
I'm sorry.
but you don't give us 5 minutes.
So we're having a meeting up here, right?
right. So that's the problem. Being disrupted, it just proves my point. And you're talking about giving 5 minutes. We've given a lot more than 5 minutes to individuals out there, and that includes you, sir. So I just bring it to the board that I think we really need to talk about this. I think what we need to do is maybe limit the segment of public comments. I don't think we should deny people an opportunity to speak. People who respect that, I think they should continue, and I think it has. And through the 3 previous chairmen, and it has demonstrated for close to over a decade now. And I think we show respect to the residents, and I think we're doing a decent job. We're not perfect, but I think we show respect to one another, and we've done that. We demonstrated. Whether we agree or disagree, at the end of the day, you know, we say hello, we meet each other, and I think we get along to a good part. And I just bring that up, Mr. Chairman. You know,
Well, I
like the
agree with you,
board
and I
to-
appreciate your comments, and I do believe we tried to do that before the whole build-up to the school votes. Mr. Newhouse had brought that up at a meeting, maybe limiting to 5 minutes per
Yeah, just,
speaker.
I know we've been down this road before, but, you know, from my perspective, putting a time limit on it was actually, you know, I understand the way it was spun by a couple of people in the media, but the whole idea was to acknowledge the fact that public comment is supposed to be, as Mr. McCoy had implemented it, to get direction on a question that regards the town. And so when somebody asks, for example, a question about the burning permit, that we simply say to that individual, either here's the answer, or I recommend you call the fire chief. If the fire chief doesn't respond to you, call the town manager. You know, that is the sum and substance of what public comment was intended to be. With that backdrop, there's really nothing. I mean, if a person comes in here and says this is an emergency, it needs to be dealt with right now, then quite frankly, there's no reason why the call shouldn't have been made to the town manager, the DPW super, the water sewer superintendent. So I agree with all of the comments that Mr. McCoy made earlier, and all we can do is continue to try and use, you know, the chairman continue to use his discretion, and the board, you know, kind of roll with the punches the best we can. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if anybody else noticed it in the Northwest Weekly section of the Globe, but there was a story on compensation for elected officials in a nearby community. And they pointed out that the city council is there, and it's a city between here and Boston, are paid on average $30,000 a year. They referenced another nearby city getting $25,000 a year, and another one getting $17,000 a year for being an elected official. And please don't anybody mistake what I'm saying as being a push for that, an advocate for that. To the contrary, I've always believed that this town is best served by having volunteer elected officials as we do now. But my point is, like the thousands of volunteers in Wilmington who spend many, many hours every week, every month, every year, doing the best that they can to contribute to the community in a way that fits them, in a way that works for them. This position is not without its sacrifices. We don't we don't give up, you know, bedtime and reading time with young children to come to this meeting to open ourselves to a barrage of personal insults and to public comment. We shouldn't be asked to. We shouldn't have to tolerate it. And for that to be done under the guise of free speech is a crock. So I'm with all the comments that Mr. McCoy made earlier tonight, and I just support the chairman and the decisions you've made along the way.
Thank you. You have something down there on this issue?
I now that it's been brought on the table, I certainly need to speak on the topic. Quite frankly, I try to minimize my comments because most of the time comments have already been made, and I'm certainly not going to make it personal towards any one individual. We all have the right to speak. We're all residents here. We're all trying to make this a better place to live in. But quite frankly, it's a choice. I choose to live here. I choose to reside here. I choose to be an elected official here. If the residents will have me through the ballot box, they've chosen to give me a yes in that capacity, and I'm working towards that, as each and every one of you are doing the same. I don't think that public comments is a means to belittle people and kind of do the whole gotcha, and as you indicated, the tossing of rocks or insults. I think, it's important for residents to come forward with their concerns, to speak on their own behalf, to say what's on your mind, and certainly, as much as someone may want, quality drinking water, so do all of we. We all want the same thing. We're trying to make the schools better. We're trying to keep services up for all residents here. We're trying to keep our schools open, to keep our police and fire fully staffed, to see that everyone has a job, to see that our property values continue to be maintained. And quite frankly, I'm choosing to be a selectman of action, and I'm at every meeting. I'm participating in the community, and I find it unfortunate that certain individuals, they're always there to kind of knock you down. They're never there to go arm in arm and kind of help you out. I've never seen some of these people serving to the elderly. I've never seen them make a donation to a given charity. I don't see them doing anything other than harassing and belittling and putting down a community that, quite frankly, I'm damn proud to say that I'm a part of. And I just think it's so unfortunate. I could choose to speak on it. I could choose to kind of fight the fight, but I find that you can't reason with unreasonable people. And you can't let logic prevail and let a cool head prevail with someone that is, quite frankly, antagonistic and just has a personal axe to grind. So I just choose not to participate with the hope that it gets better. But certainly no shrinking violet, but I don't want to be going toe-to-toe with someone that, quite frankly, doesn't have my best interests at heart, and at times I question if they have the town's best interests at heart. It's all more about the fight than it is about the reality, and I'm just not going to go there.
Thank you.
Well said. I guess I want to reiterate, and it's been said before and a little bit alluded to tonight, that public comments, this meeting, I think just through tradition and history, there's the notion, I think, or the perception on behalf of the public is that public comments is almost kind of a requirement, that government bodies must afford the public opportunity to speak. And we have traditionally and historically done that here since Mr. McCoy brought it into place, and I believe it has a place. I'm not suggesting we should get rid of it. However, I just want to make it very clear that there's no statute, unless I'm missing something, and I would ask Mr. Newhouse, just because of his experience in local government, to correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no statute, there's no law, there's no mandate put upon us by a higher form of government or a bylaw that states that we must have, at the end of our meeting, an opportunity for the public to speak. This is a government body that has its meetings in public. It's transparency. It's designed so that the public can see our deliberations and our conversations and have the comfort and the peace of mind of knowing that there's no backroom deals going on, and it's not designed for Wilmington, it's designed for government, so that we function in the open. But that does not ipso facto mean that we engage the public in our meetings. We have our meetings in public. That's what public meeting is. And I think that, unfortunately, that definition has evolved over time to be construed as it's a public meeting, and it's not that. So I commend my predecessor or the chairman and his predecessors who have chaired this meeting the past decade or so for continuing that tradition and that history, and I suggest that we continue doing it, but I support your notion that we do so with strict limitations on it to your judgment. So that's my feelings on that subject.
We good with that?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McDonald, we've sat up here for the past 15, no, you're done. You're not on, Mr. McDonald, you are now interrupting a public meeting again. You're done.
And it was ruled that...
Is there any other new business or committee reports?
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have one thing, Mr. Chairman. I just want to bring it to folks' attention who might be watching at home that April is Autism Awareness Month. The Center for Disease Control recently came out with new statistics, and I'm not one to characterize statistics as alarming, not one to use the term epidemic very lightly, but certainly the statistics that were put out by the CDC are sobering, to say the least. If I remember the numbers correctly, they expect that 1 in 88 children born in the U.S. will be diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and 1 in 54 boys. So just wanted to bring to people's attention that effort, particularly in the month of April, to raise people's level of awareness. It truly is a health issue, and with respect to this board and the town of Wilmington and the Wilmington taxpayers and the Wilmington community, not only does that mean that a lot of families are directly affected, but the town's manner of doing business is affected. The school department obviously is greatly affected, and it's, is and will continue to be a budgeting challenge. So I just thought it was appropriate to raise that under new business. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. McDonald, one more thing on the new business. I think it's ironic that we as a board have sat here for the past 15 plus minutes again, speaking on an issue that is really a non-issue. And one individual in town keeps on making it an issue. And not saying that we shouldn't have to stay here until midnight if there's town business to be done. But the way that things are done through public comment have been wrong for over a year, and frankly, I just think it's ridiculous. Mr. Newhouse, thank you for your comments. I just want to let everybody know that Mr. Kyra had to leave for some personal business.
I apologize. We're still dealing with the heckler in the back. Mr. McDonald, the greatest neurologists and scientists in this world have not pinpointed a cause for autism and autism spectrum disorders. So if you're asking me to give you the cause of autism, no, I can't do that, sir.
Well,
so please keep gratuitous insults, comments, and questions on an issue like autism to yourself.
Yeah,
thank you.
I think
okay.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's a serious.
Go ahead, Mr. McCoy.
I think it's a serious issue.
I'm going to ask you to leave if you continue to interrupt the public meeting. I'm going to ask the police chief. I'm going to ask the police chief to escort you out now. Mr. McDonald, have a good evening. Chief, could you please escort Mr. McDonald out of here again so we can finish the town's business?
I just want Mr. McDonald to hear this as you say. I appreciate it, Mr. Newhouse. I have a son who has autism. Thank you.
Good night, Mr. McDonald. Thank you, Chief. Detective Segura, thank you very much. Please escort Mr. McDonald out of here again. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Have a good night. Before I was interrupted again by Mr. McDonald, I just want to let you know that Mr. Kyrie did have to leave on some family business. Also, last meeting, I asked him to invite the World Championship Hockey, the State Championship Hockey team here this meeting. We are going to have them in next meeting, and thank you again for tuning in tonight. Now I'd like to read the important dates. April 9th to April 13th is the curbside collection of yard waste. April 11th is the brush drop-off at Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. April 14th is the brush drop-off at Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. April 16th, town offices are closed in observance of Patriots' Day. April 18th is the brush drop-off at Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. April 21st is the brush drop-off for Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And April 21st is the Little League Opening Day ceremonies, which will step off from the from the 4th of July parking lot down to the field at 9:30, I believe, is when they're meeting. April 23rd to the 27th is again the curbside collection of yard waste. April 28th is the annual town election. Polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. April 30th, Tiny Tots Kids Club registration, Town Hall Auditorium at 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And of course, May 5th is our annual town meeting at the high school gymnasium at 10:30 a.m. Thank you, and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion made second. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.